Okay, guys, we're back with Mickey here on episode 5 of the Foreign Invasion of 1871. What's the name of this fifth
This one is status, standing, and character.
Okay, status, standing, and character. Let's go.
All right, so I'm gonna do my best. Again, guys, I'm learning all this stuff for the first time, and so I'm doing my best. For all the lawful experts out there, please bear with me. So the reason that the deep state and the courts and so on think that we are belligerent is because in a way we are, because they've dumbed us down. We don't know our status, our standing, nor our character. So your status is basically, are you operating in the public or the private? Are you operating the public would mean that you're operating as your corporation. Are you operating the private would mean you're operating as a living being or living man or woman. So you have obviously different rights depending on who you are and how you're presenting yourself, right? And we all have the right to self-discernment. And actually what that means is you have a right to play the game, but you got to know who you are as you walk in when you play that game. So sometimes people are actually see benefit from claiming their corporation and acting as their corporation. It actually isn't necessarily a bad thing. And other times they do see the benefit and have more rights if they're acting as a living, breathing woman, man or woman. So knowing your status is half the battle when you walk in any argument. Who are you and who are they? Okay, so if they're operating or they can only represent a corporation, such as the 5,000 lawyers that currently have signed their oath to the British Accreditation Registry, the bar, they can only represent us as the dead corporation in the public. Okay, and as a matter of fact, both the prosecuting attorney and the defense attorney are both actually working for you, which puts you in a really precarious spot because the defense attorney can only plea bargain. So the long and short of that is you got to know who you're dealing with, how they see you, and how you are there to present yourself. And it's better to just never contract, to be honest, and to not fall into their trap. But the second one is status, is standing. So status, standing, and character. Standing is you have to know what jurisdiction you're operating in and what your relevance is to the case. So think of it as standing in high ground or low ground. Are you standing in the ocean? Are you standing in the boat? Or are you standing on land? Are you standing in trust? Or where are you standing? And so think of it sort of like land, air, water. Land is like a chess game where you have characters on a board and you're operating in the game of chess. So you're playing a chess game. Trust might be more like you're playing a Monopoly game. You got to know the game you're playing, right? So you're playing Monopoly and there's a transaction of money generally in a trust. And then in water, it's like playing Battleship where they're moving the battleships all around because they can, because you're in their jurisdiction. You are completely playing a battleship game against someone who's a liar, cheater, stealer, and they're thieves, and they're pirates, and they're operating in the night in commerce. So again, when you know your status and your standing, and it says we have the right to self-discernment, but if we don't know who we are and who we're operating against and who we're going up against when we go up against the Death Star, then we don't know who we are. And then character is, if you're walking in good character, meaning are you walking in honor? Because if you're acting belligerent, are you in honor? Are you wasting their time? So they think of us as being dishonorable. They think of us as being, debtors in a debt slave environment. And so we didn't really have character. So now we have an opportunity to walk in sacred honor and to, actually hold ourselves in high character and high status. So anyway, that kind of wraps up status, standing, and character, and why it's so important for us to know who we're standing, up against. Knowing who you are and who they are, entering into any kind of arena is essential to, to win in order to take high ground.
Awesome. Any advice on how people can identify who they are and as identifying these different arenas, like you're saying, Monopoly or chess or at sea or air, battleship and airs? How does someone identify who they are? And then what would you say your recommendations versus, because we talk about being belligerent, we talk about them looking at us as we're dead entities to them in their systems, right? So what do you say about how someone can operate with honor versus being belligerent?
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that a little more in the next segment of how we got ourselves into this mess. But the bottom line is when we contract with them or when we accept benefits, you have to know who you're accepting as. Like, so if you're accepting as a corporation, you accept benefits, now you're contracting as a corporation with their corporation. You're contracting in the public. And when you contract in the public, you're actually giving up your rights because you're walking into an agreement, may not be an informed consent agreement, but you are walking into an agreement to contract with them. So again, it's just, this is what I mean by it takes a little while to really dissect, and it's every single instance. Like if I register to vote for the evil empire, I'm registering my all caps name, which is my corporation, in the public. I think I'm exercising a right, but that's the myth. And then I'm contracting with them as a corporation. So it's a contract between corporation to corporation, debt entity to debt entity, operating in the public. The way that the Rothschilds are trained is to operate in the private and to keep everything private. So they operate completely in the living status, the land of the living. And in the private, they manage their own estates under their own trusts, and they manage their own companies under their own trusts, and they put everything, wrap everything into the private so that no one has access to their estate because they are the executor of that private estate. So hopefully that makes sense, so that we can be a little less belligerent, and that we always learn to ask the questions. Again, if you ask the questions and you ask a lawful counsel, a lawful expert, what is my status, standing, and character, and what arena am I entering? Think about it. Now you know your opponent and you know who you are, so you could take high ground.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mickey.